And with that, I welcome you into Coach's Corner. We had a funky little beat there at the end as the Senior Bowl was starting to cut on, but I stopped it. Stopped it off before it did. I am your host, Lucas Kochevar. As always, this is Coach's Corner. This is the aka Lucas and Layla show, having a fun time in the background there, enjoying her bone. And not a whole lot of news to start off with the show. You know, it's just April. There's just playoffs. It's the day before the draft. It's NHL playoffs are happening. Not a lot to get to, but regardless, we should start somewhere. I think starting with teams that were eliminated last night, because that's fair to them while we recap and eventually talk about the games that we have going on right now. First off, the Timberwolves are no more. The Denver Nuggets decided to take care of business there. They did their job. Took out the 8-seeded Timberwolves that tried to give them all they could. And it was a fun series. I think to look back on it now is interesting because we can kind of point to some times where the series really flipped. And, you know, it was one of those I don't think it ever really was in question. But it was Anthony Edwards that was trying to drag the Timberwolves from the basement to beat the Nuggets and have a chance in every game. But unfortunately, the play of Rudy Gobert along with Karl Anthony Towns was just too much to overcome, and they were not able to do that. And so I think that if they had Jaden McDaniels, who punched a wall and broke his hand in the season finale, if they would have had him, would have been helpful. And they might have won this series because they could have defended better, more, five out on defense and actually kind of gotten some stops when they needed to. But in the end, Jamal Murray was too much. Nikola Jokic finished off the game pretty strong. Michael Porter Jr. finally hit some shots. And it's that offensive approach of balance at all three levels, from being in the post to the mid-range to the three-pointer, that the Nuggets have to just overtake a team like the Timberwolves that have, two giants in the center there. One of them's a defensive player. You go into the offseason with a fresh mindset, try and reset, because Karl Anthony Towns was hurt a majority of the season, and I don't think him and Rudy really were ever able to gel. Now, I think Anthony Edwards, as a ball handler, as a playmaker, could really use some work as well, and to really unlock another level for him. And he's already at an insane level with his shot making, and his athleticism is just off the charts. Now, if he could channel that into some more playmaking, passing out of double teams, I think that they have a top 20 player on their hands. But they have to figure that out over the offseason with, this whole time and training camp eventually. I don't think there's any major moves I would make for the Timberwolves now. And I know the speculation is to trade Karl Anthony Towns to build around Ant, but you don't have to do that this offseason. You don't. You can wait. You can hold off on that, wait till next time, and approach that situation next offseason maybe if you get another slow Karl Anthony Towns season or a bad offensive season for him. You can explore that then. But Cat does need to step up his play when he is playing, and he needs to figure out a good role for him, whether it's shooting the ball consistently or being around the mid-range to post area. He has to figure it out. And so, stuff like that I think is very fair to talk about. Okay, Mr. Jackson Kelly in the chat, I see you. Carl is a cat, or Cat is a, oh my gosh. Cat is a cat, so I get it. He is a very, very loved player by you. But he needs to play better in the playoffs and not foul out every time, because he loves to foul out every time. It feels like every time I'm watching, he's just reaching in and fouling. Regardless, he needs to figure it out behind Anthony Edwards, who's a damn good dog. I gotta say that much. So, and then we have the Clippers losing to the Suns. Clippers never had a chance. Kawhi Leonard's knee will never be a real knee again. It'll always be metal because he can't stay healthy, unfortunately, and it sucks. And Paul George never will be healthy either. Wrap him in bubble wrap until the playoffs, I guess. But I don't know. Clippers have soul searching to do. I don't know I don't know exactly where they go from here because they're about to move into a new arena. They have to figure out kind of this role where they can just make it good enough through the regular season and get to the playoffs healthy. I don't know. The Clippers are just a struggle, Jackson. You know they are. At least Russell Westbrook actually played good for the Clippers, which is wild given the fact that he was a dumpster fire in LA, like the Lakers. And then the Clippers, he played pretty good. And 3 of 18 isn't good. That's not good at all. But he at least does the playmaking. One of the games he did go crazy. It's I think Russ has a legitimate shot to stay in the NBA where I thought maybe he should retire. But that's just how I want to start my show, talking about the bad players, I guess, on this NBA, the bad losers, I should say, because we still don't have any other finalists in the Eastern Conference outside of the Sixers. All the Knicks are looking to make that a not true statement soon. So, real quick, we're going to jump over to the draft. My final mock draft. Jackson, as you can tell here, and Jackson in the chat, a local Kentucky fan, I guess you could say, is looking for his boy Will Levis. I have Will Levis to 11th to Tennessee. I think Will Levis is a good fit in Tennessee. It's actually probably the best case scenario for any quarterback. Out of the guys that got drafted, maybe Bryce Young is in a better spot with Carolina, just given the fact that they had a pretty good offseason. But just run through the quarterbacks. I have Bryce Young to Carolina. I think it's probably pretty set in stone at this point. I have Anthony Richardson to Indianapolis. I think that's just the fit makes sense. Eagles coaching staff, Anthony Richardson, Jalen Hurts, that connect all the dots there. Then you have C.J. Stroud to the Raiders. That was the other one. And, C.J. Stroud is falling in the draft for reasons I don't really understand exactly. It's weird because I can't tell if it's the smoke that's trying to push him down the draft board or if it's legitimate concerns. It's always kind of hard and murky to understand that fine line. But I think the Raiders are kind of a team that, they have nothing to lose. They have Jimmy Garoppolo. They paid him, and fine. He's fine. But you want to look ahead of, Jimmy Garoppolo, and C.J. Stroud, I think, is falling to them at 7 as a good fit for Josh McDaniels. And there are ways in this world that I think it just works out for them. Plain as that. And then I have Will Levis 11th to Tennessee. I think Tennessee, I kind of put my reasoning here in LK League notes. Tennessee looks like they want to move off of Tannehill. I think that's fair. He kind of was bad last year after Arthur Smith was really, really gone and Derrick Henry was hurt. They drafted Malik Willis in the 3rd round last year, but he looked god-awful. So I don't know if you can trust his improvement. I think the Falcons kind of have that scenario with Desmond Ridder, but it's very fluid. And Jackson in the chat said, if I'm a GM, 1 Stroud, 2 Levis, 3 AR, 4 Bryce. And I feel like I know you, and I know that you're probably being so legitimate in that thought process that Bryce Young is worst. But I also have to imagine that part of that is just you want to make Brendan, the Alabama fan of the world, mad, and you don't like Alabama. I don't either. But Bryce Young, come on, man. Come on, man. He's a tiny little fella, I get it. He's the smallest guy. He's the smallest person in the world, it feels like. I think he's smaller than Kyler Murray, which is hilarious in its own right. But still, Bryce Young is Bryce Young. And it was also the Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. I don't think there's a big gap between those two. I really don't. It's just I just like Anthony Richardson's athleticism more than Levis. That's really all it comes down to. But you could pick and choose your spots. I think Levis is a better probably passer at this point. His accuracy is probably just better. But The tools, man. The tools. Jackson says, small and the only quarterback not to win a title at Alabama since Blake Sims. Also, AR and Levis just too much potential. I mean, yeah, no, that's those are both. One of those is actually a fact, and the other one is also very true, I think, as well. Because although like Levis is a little bit older than Richardson, it's just really crazy. Then AR to Seattle, sitting behind Geno for a year or two. That's a good fit too. I think Anthony Richardson is like I think Anthony Richardson can work in almost any scenario he's put into outside of I think maybe the Texans. Because Texans and Raiders, I guess, because I think the Raiders are just like a mess waiting to happen for any quarterback. Besides like maybe CJ Stroud, who would benefit from structure, you know. And like a raw quarterback going in there just doesn't feel right. Like Anthony Richardson sitting behind Geno Smith, you know, kind of getting that. He'll eventually inherit DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, 2 tackles they drafted last year. And I mean, Seattle has another pick here at 20. I have them taking Myles Murphy here at this pick and just loading up on the D-line. I mean, it seems like a very, like, a smart idea. I'm just unsure if they would do that after paying Geno all that money. And I mean, I'm not one to say that Geno's going to be the guy moving forward. It's a very, very tall task for Geno to like repeat the success he just had. But you know, I don't think it's out of the question. I think they do like him, and you know, I do want to like quickly like kind of look ahead to next year's draft as well. And I know I saw a tweet that kind of explained on to next year's draft. Like it went like there's always Darnold and Baker. There's always like Tua and Herbert. There's always like, you know, it kind of listed off the two, like these are the next 2 quarterbacks, and it did that for like every class. And I mean, it kind of is true for next year with Caleb Williams and Drake May. So like Seattle could just also just like I kind of have here, just go double defensive line and then try not wait for one of those 2 guys next year, because they would have to be like 1 or 2 pick bad. But you know, maybe there's a wild card that comes up in the draft process as a 3rd guy. That kind of always happens. I think, you know, Anthony Richardson's a great example of that. Then, yeah, Quinn Ewers, he had a great spring game, and I mean, Stark does a decent job at getting guys their numbers. And Michael Penix at Washington had a great year, and they're returning a lot of that Washington Husky team, and wouldn't shock me there. And he asked, I've seen reports today that Hendon goes top 20. Any chance? I don't think there's a chance. I won't say I don't think there's a chance. I think there's like a less than 50% chance that Hendon goes in the first round. The late 20s are the spot where it makes sense to me. And I don't think it means like any of these teams, although the Saints, I'm looking at the Saints, but the fact that they signed Derek Carr to a 4-year deal instead of like a 3-year deal kind of puts that to question. Like, would it shock me if the Vikings drafted Hendon Hooker? Absolutely not. I mean, Kirk Cousins is actually entering the last year of his deal. You know, maybe the Ravens, Tyler Huntley's a free agent, so they get Hendon Hooker, maybe transition to him after Lamar. I don't know. It's one of those things I just don't buy it, because Hendon Hooker's older and he's coming off the ACL. So it's like you're redshirting a year and he'll be 26 basically. Like he'll be a 26-year-old rookie. So it's like, how can I like truly, you know, take stock in a 26-year-old quarterback? It's insane. And I mean, I don't think it hurts any team to go try and like trade up or just wait for him on day 2, like the Packers. If the Packers just waited for him on day 2, I mean, the team that is win now that might have a shaky quarterback situation or an older quarterback, I think it makes sense. So, you know, I'm not a buyer in the Hendon Hooker going first round, top 20 especially, but it's the NFL draft. Anything could happen. It's a very uncertain year, you know. It's a very curious time, I think, for fans. And to speculate all this stuff is crazy. Jackson ended with, all right, last question, then I'll leave you alone and eat my frozen pizza. Does Trey Lance play a factor tomorrow night? I don't think he does. I don't think Trey Lance. I don't think it's shut down. I don't think it's like Trey Lance is all the way not going. I think it has to be a really, really lucrative offer, like one of these first rounders to the Niners, like for Trey Lance. I can't imagine like a second rounder or a third rounder will get the job done. I think the uncertainty of Brock Purdy kind of puts that to bed because, the elbow injury has been weirdly reported. It's like kind of like he's been throwing left-handed. He's out for the season. He's only out until training camp. It's just a weird time of like no one truly knows when Brock Purdy will be back. And so I think that level of it makes the Niners want to just hold on to Trey Lance just because to see what they have. Because, they traded so much to get him in the first place. And so I do think that there's a possibility. Do I think it's like he's a lock to be traded tomorrow night? No. Maybe down the road. It's hard for me to say because, like I said, I'm a Trey Lance believer. I've kind of been stuck on Trey Lance. Just I want to see him play. And he only got 2 games last year. And it's just, it breaks my heart because I've made this comparison so much, but like Anthony Richardson, I think, is similar to Trey Lance coming out of college. I think big arm, uber athletic, can make great throws here and there, but it's just can Anthony Richardson stay healthy? I guess that'll be a question if he decides to run the ball consistently. And he took a lot of punishment at Florida, and I don't know. This is all stuff that's so hard to project, and that's why the draft is so difficult for teams. But then you have teams like the Ravens always seem to consistently get it. So, just running over some of the more other picks. Wide receivers, I got Jackson Smith to the Texans. Jordan Addison to the Packers. Josh Downs is my surprise pick to sneak into the first round. Him to the Eagles, I think, is a really good spot for him. Because I've often said that this wide receiver class is full of slot receivers. It's so many smaller, speedy, quick guys that really kind of they probably can't survive a number one big physical corner like a Stephon Gilmore or Jalen Ramsey. I think it's a lot of smaller guys like Cole Beasley archetypes. It's a lot of those guys. And I think Josh Downs is a perfect example of that. And I think him slotting in there for the Eagles, behind A.J. Brown and Devontae will kind of really open up the offense, I think, over the middle or stuff like that. My surprise guys, I think I have going in the first round. Mozzie Smith is a D tackle in Michigan, solid player. Nothing that screams off the page that he'll be a star, but I think that he has potential for Dallas. That Dan Quinn would really like to have him in the middle, wreaking havoc while Micah Parsons and crew are on the edge. And people have been saying that Dallas is going to take a running back or a receiver. I don't buy a weapon going to the Cowboys just because I don't know, man. The Cowboys seem like they're so loaded on offense that it doesn't make much sense for the defense to really it does not make sense for the Dolphins. For Dallas to really go back to that offensive well. Just go on defense. I feel like you were really good, but you can get better here. And I just try to think some other guys. Bijan Robinson to 19. BJ Robinson, I have no clue where he's going to go in this draft. I truly have no idea. The Falcons have been the early favorites now for a minute. It's so hard for me to buy them drafting him at 8 because 8 will. I think the way the board's going to fall, I think there's going to be so many good players at the 8th pick. Now, if Atlanta trades back and takes a couple picks maybe, to get to the Steelers spot or maybe to the Titans spot, and they draft Bijan there, I like that. But I mean, they have Tyler Algier, who 5th-round pick that just got 1,000 yards. And it's like, why would you go after a running back if you have that guy already? And Cordell Patterson is healthy again. I don't know. Tyree Wilson, I haven't heard his name in a while, so I have no idea where he's going to go. To the Eagles is just a spot just because I think, I'm kind of jumping all over the draft board, but to the Eagles makes sense because I feel like the Eagles have some older guys along the D-line, so getting Tyree Wilson, a guy who can, I think, play inside and out as like a pass rusher, is a good grab for them. Yeah, I think the Commanders are a real wild card. I have them taking the edge from Iowa. They didn't pick up Chase Young's 5th-year option. That happened today. Kind of a big deal because I was super high on Chase Young coming into the NFL because I thought he'd be like kind of what I thought Will Anderson is going to be, but he hasn't exploded on the scene. But I mean, he's also been hurt. So how do you take stock in that? But yeah, Washington has Sam Howell at quarterback, so if maybe they really like one of these guys, they can jump up to get him. But there's also been reports about them doing the wait till next year's draft for the quarterback situation. So yeah, that's my last. These are my last final thoughts on the mock draft. Like I say, I have some thoughts here that more kind of similar to what I've said, but some more thought out, words about them. And I'm looking forward to it. I have yet to decide if I'm gonna be live streaming because it would be really fun, I think, to do a live stream draft watch along. But either way. Going to finish out here talking about these playoffs because they're about ended here. Like, they're about pretty much decided. I think the Knicks are pretty much won. The Grizzlies are up a decent amount here. And I really do like the Grizzlies to win this game, take it back to L.A. That's kind of the way I'm leaning so far for that. I think the Hawks are going to lose. I'm not buying the Hawks winning that damn game yesterday. That made me so mad, so frustrated because it was such a dumb 3-pointer by Trae Young, but he made it, and so how can I be mad? Then Milwaukee here, Jimmy Butler's not going to put up 57 points again, is he? No shot, or 56. Like, there's no way, right? Like, it took one of the best performances we've ever seen in the playoffs to beat the Bucks, barely. If you're going to tell me Jimmy Butler's going to do that like in one more time here, I can buy that, but I don't tonight. Give me the Bucks here. And then Kings Warriors, De'Aaron Fox hurting his finger really hurts them for me. We're going to see how he goes, but the role players will play a big factor, and I think role players play better at home in the playoffs, so I have it going that way. But either way, it's a great show, great participation from a local friend in the chat, Jackson Kelly. I appreciate you, boss man. Make sure to like, share, subscribe with all your friends. I'm here Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 o'clock every week, hopefully now. And I guess be on the lookout for a draft show tomorrow. Maybe I'll have a friend on. I don't know. I'm talking around. It's a lot of planning stuff, but regardless, I am your host, Lucas Kochevar, as always. I will see you next time.